Hello, everyone, and welcome to What's Your Story with Kathy Bacon. That's me, the host. And I'm so excited to have you listen and watch today. I have a very special guest, which I'll tell you about in just a moment. I'm now in Bellevue, Washington. As you know, I left Thailand and have been traveling around Washington, seeing all my family and just loving them up and having a really great time with them, and still doing my radio shows. So it's been really, really fun. If you've looked at my page, you can see that I have a new logo. The page is taking different shape and form. I have a really wonderful person that is really helping me. Her name is Denise Faddis, and please give her some love on her page. She does logos and she supports creatives to the ninth degree. She's a wonderful, wonderful woman, and I'm so excited to have her on my camp because she is really helping me to take this show to another level, which I really want to do because I love giving you a voice. I love hearing your stories. You all are so courageous to me, and you have a story that's unique to you, which is so important in the world because sometimes we want to take on other people's stories. We want to listen to the voices outside of us, and we are maybe are afraid to share. And quite frankly, we all have a unique story to tell. And there's no judgment here about anything that you're doing. Anything that you are doing in your life is okay with me. And I want to thank you so much for coming on and telling your story on What's Your Story Radio. Please like the page, What's Your Story Radio, Kathy Bacon. Everything is posted on my website at www.kathybacon.com. So you can go there. You can see who the guests are. I have them all listed for the month of August. I have some really exciting guests. Today I have a really lovely woman who I just recently met. And we met on the phone, but today we've actually met in person on the internet. I mean, aren't we so lucky to have the internet to connect with others? And that's why I changed this radio show to not just voice, but being able to see the person and us having the interview. Because really that human connection, seeing each other's eyes and understanding what each person is about is the goal, really. So today I want to tell you a little bit about Lori Heisler. And she is a purpose-driven entrepreneur, catalyst for social change, and devoted champion for children. Lori is the founder and president of the newly launched Greater Good Institute. Founded on the belief that all people deserve to be treated with dignity, compassion, and love, the Greater Good Institute provides opportunities for emerging leaders, educators, and entrepreneurs to leverage their influence, strengthen their leadership, uplift humanity, and become inspiring agents of change. And if any of you are out there and wanting to be an agent of change, please contact her and listen to this interview because you will understand exactly what that means in our world today. As a heart-led leader dedicated to doing work that makes a difference, Lori offers the following advice for anyone looking to do the same. We live in a culture where our success is defined by our title, our position, our bank account, and accomplishments. But if we want to live a life fulfilled, and if we want to truly make an impact, we need to redefine our values. For most of us, that includes living a life full of love, joy, and service. Only when we get clear about our values and the legacy we want to leave can we truly lead a life worth living. Having worked in education most of her career, Lori had a profound shift in focus when, as an administrator, she realized her primary concern for children centered more around ensuring their basic physical and social emotional needs were being met than whether or not they were adequately performing on standardized tests and the ever-changing state standards. Don't we all know about this if we have children, if we live in a state that always is testing children, always is finding their worth in tests and all of that? I've lived in Colorado. I've worked in Colorado as an educator, and I know that that does happen. And, it's time to make a change for that. And that's exactly what Lori is doing. She's a seasoned solo traveler and adventurer. And this October, Lori will be joining ECPAT USA on an advocacy journey to one of my favorite places in the world, and that's Thailand, to learn about the broad scope and work being done on the ground to combat child prostitution, pornography, and sex trafficking. Lori's goal is to spread awareness and learn best practices on how the Greater Good Institute can be powerful influence of change in helping to prevent all violence and exploitation of children. So, with that being said, I'm sure you all are dying to meet her. So, I would like to welcome Lori with us this morning on What's Your Story Radio. So glad to see you, Lori.
Hi, Kathy. Thanks so much for having me. What a nice introduction. It's so great to be here.
Oh, I'm so happy to have you on and really talk about this issue and how you are trying to help others through your institute. Put that little thought in their mind about how they can be of service, not, through their businesses or make a business. So when did you know that you were going to be a change maker?
I think I knew when I was little, actually. I just have always been that person who believed in fairness. And when I would see things in the world that weren't fair, I would have to speak up about them. My mom and I, growing up, didn't always see eye to eye on some of the big issues, and there were definitely times where I'd get myself in trouble, a little bit of trouble, just because I've never been one to sit back and follow the rules because someone said that that's what the rules should be. And so, I would say I started when I was really young. If I had to think of a defining moment, there was a time when I was in high school where I actually was taking theater arts as an elective. And it was a small group of students, and there was an interracial couple in our class. And somebody was talking about them. They weren't actually there that day. And I remembered, embarrassingly enough as it is to say this, I remember saying something that was disapproving. And an older classman said to me, "Well, I don't understand. If two people love each other, isn't that enough?" And I looked at him, being the huge believer in love that I am. And it was in that moment where I realized that I had bias. And I know that it came from my family, but I was so embarrassed. But I'm so thankful for that moment because it really it changed me, right? I wasn't even aware that I had that bias because I definitely had, friends of color and associated with people of color and didn't think badly of people of color. I just didn't know that I didn't agree with interracial couples at the time. It's so embarrassing to say now. But, I think I was 15.
Yeah. But that's when we're learning. That's when we're learning and
for sure
who we are, right? So
yeah, absolutely. And so ironically enough, I went on. In high school, I was a member of our Human Relations Committee and Anchor Club, which are all service organizations. Our Human Relations Committee is really just what it says. It's learning and advocating for human rights. And that's really was the start of my journey.
Yeah. And, it's so funny how we have very similar lives, it sounds like.
I know, we have so much in common. That's great.
When you talk about being young and just knowing that there was something you were supposed to do, and my mother and I did not agree on a lot of things, and we still do not, the way that we move around in the world. And that's okay. My journey's different, and I'm happy with what it is. But again, just looking at the world and going, that's not okay, and I need to say something. And I need to say it now.
Oh, yeah. I know that feeling.
Yeah. And my grandma used to say, Kathy, you used to watch like when they would have the riots on TV where the whites this is in the 50s, were,
I can't
were
imagine.
arguing with the blacks. And you would always say, why are they being so mean to those people? And I remember thinking that, like, what is the problem? Because the color is different.
Mm-hmm.
Again, being thrown into the world and then hearing those messages like you're talking about that we hear, like, oh, it's not okay for blacks and whites to marry. It's not okay to be this. It's not okay to be that. And then you go, wait a second.
Who says?
Who says that? Who actually believes that? Why are we being right?
Yeah. Yes.
It's so awesome that, we're both courageous to stand up here and say we thought that that's the way it was supposed to be, and now we know it's not.
Mm-hmm.
Gosh, 3 cheers. And what made you decide to become an educator?
Oh, sure. So, lots of things. One, I just love to learn, and school really was a haven for me growing up. I was raised by a single mom, and I actually was the first person in my family to graduate high school, and I was very social. So, like I said, school was a haven. I had many teachers asking me, are you going to be a teacher when you go to college? And I was like, no, I'm going to be a lawyer or a psychologist or something, but not a teacher. And really, what happened was I ended up graduating high school and going to college and was a psychology major for a little while. But I started working in a preschool to get through college. And I loved it so much. It was a joy every day to go to work. And I happened to actually be attending a university that used to be a teacher college. It had a really good reputation. So I changed majors, went into education, and really my why for education is because I saw the opportunities that education provided for me. Because, like I said, I was the first in my family to graduate high school, and I wanted to be able to give that opportunity back to kids.
Yeah.
So that was my why.
Nice, very nice. It's so funny how, okay, leg 1 of the journey.
Yes.
Leg 1, loving children,
yes.
wanting to make a difference with them, giving them your all. I mean, it's really a wonderful thing to be an educator and care so much.
You know what was great too was that, so with the little ones in preschool, it was just that. It was just that sheer love and joy of being with children. But then when I became a teacher and I was able to help shape the minds and see how kids think, then, I mean, the best way I can describe it is I had a complete admiration for children. They're just so, they have so much to offer and so much to give and so much insight. And when the light bulb comes on and they start asking questions and they start feeling passionate about things, I just see so much potential in them that it is an honor to be able to help them grow. Yeah.
And it's very true. Kids come with like a blank slate, and we all need to believe that everything that we model and say comes on that slate,
Sure does.
And I remember it as a kid. I remember hearing so many things and going, this can't all be true.
Did that really happen?
Did that really happen? And then the perception of children too, and they're just so open to everything, it's a lovely thing to be an educator and be passionate about it, because there's so many that aren't, that are just doing their time. But there's people like you, and there's people like my son-in-law who's a teacher, who absolutely just is so involved and so happy to be in the presence of children,
Yeah. Yes.
Really, really awesome. So when did you decide to transition into education? I mean, you started out at a preschool, and then you went into teaching. What was that transition like for you?
Transitioning into education or out of education?
Excuse me, out of education. I'm sorry.
That's okay. So that was a tough transition. It continues to be a tough transition, actually. So I started out as an elementary teacher. I went on, I became a behavior coach. I worked as a paraprofessional at one point,
Yeah.
and at some point I had to decide what I wanted to do next. So I became a leader and I became a school administrator, which was great. It was moving my way up the ladder, right?
Yes, right. You're supposed to do that.
Yeah, that's what you're supposed to do. I was great at doing what I was supposed to do until about 3 years ago. Thank goodness.
That's
And
awesome.
yeah, basically what happened for me was, as you had mentioned in the beginning, I started when I was sitting around the table having conversations about kids. Most of the conversations that we were having were not the conversations I felt that we should be having. And I was an assistant principal at the time and just continued to be frustrated with the system. I was frustrated with the people who were leading me. I think as service professionals, anyone in the service profession, when you pour yourself into other people, you need to have someone who pours themselves into you, or a community of people pouring into you. And I think we're often misled that we have to not need anyone else, right? We have to have this amazing self-confidence, and we don't need anyone else to lead us. We should be able to lead ourselves. And while part of that is true, it's only half the truth, right? We know that we need other people to support us and encourage us and see our value. Right. And I just wasn't getting that at the leadership level.
Right, you were needing it.
I was needing it, yeah. Especially as a newer administrator, I was definitely needing it. And I think the one thing that's true about all good educators is they have higher expectations for themselves than anybody else. And they desperately want to learn and grow. It's who they are. It's all they know, right? And so when you're not being afforded the opportunity to learn and grow to your true potential, that becomes frustrating, especially when that's what you're doing for everyone else. And so that was happening. There were a lot of ups and downs throughout my teaching career. But one thing I will say, go ahead, what?
No, sorry, my phone started to take off and I didn't want it to do that.
Sorry.
All of a sudden I can hear you talking twice. Sorry.
No. I was just going to say one thing is for sure that I never left education because of the kids. Never. I stayed because of the kids. And it was just, it was time for me to move on. I believed so much in myself and my ability to lead and make an impact. And there had been so many tears throughout the years of things that just frustrated me about the system of education that I left and I didn't even have a plan. I just said, I'm going to press the pause button for now.
Yes.
And figure out what I'm going to do next.
Yes.
So
take a chance, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah.
I know that you can say this now, and I've said it about my life many times when I just said, you know what, I can't do this anymore. Screw it. I'm going to just take a chance and do it. And once I said that and it went out to the universe, everything conspired to make it happen.
Yeah.
But we get so scared, we get so scared that that's not going to happen. And our own mind says, oh, you can't do that. What do you mean you're going to quit your job? But then when you get so strong inside with yourself and realize that there's something else you're supposed to do, you go for it.
Yes. And I would say,
align, right?
I would actually say, so for me, the confidence was there to take the leap. I'm a ready, fire, aim kind of girl. I'm like, let's just do this and then see what happens. So the confidence was there. The belief in myself was there. But that inner confidence that you just talked about, the universe aligning, that didn't happen for me so easily. It really took the last 2 years, or not 3, but probably 2.5 years for me to really look inside and reflect and go and just deal with some of those demons that I didn't even know were there, right? They kind of surfaced after I took the leap. I was like, whoa, wait a minute, what?
Exactly.
But I believe in myself.
Leave me alone.
Yeah.
I'm doing this.
Yeah, but I will say this. They often say that when you are making a transition that while on one hand it was of my own free will, I just decided to leave. On the other hand, there were some forces that felt like they weren't that were working against me. And when you feel that way and you think, why is this happening to me? And you start to question everything that you know, it usually ends up being the biggest blessing, right? And for me, that's exactly what's happened. It's like, oh, I've always had this bigger purpose. I knew that, right? I always have been a creative. I knew that. So
And,
yeah, it's,
getting that in sidetracking for a little while was okay because you learned what you needed to learn to take on the social enterprise. So
absolutely.
tell us about that. I mean, why did you choose to start social enterprise? Why now? I mean,
yeah. So this is actually a really interesting story. So what happened was when I left my job as an assistant principal, what I didn't tell you was that I had actually planned a trip to South Africa, a trip that I'd wanted to take my whole life. And it was a volunteer trip to rural South Africa. And I went there and very similar to the advocacy journey that I'm taking, I fundraised for it. And I had so much positive feedback from that. So many amazing people reaching out to me, telling me that I've inspired them, that they just, I had one lady who was a cancer survivor. She'd always wanted to go to Cambodia, and she went because she saw the trip that I had planned. And I just remember thinking my whole life, for whatever reason, if you ask people one word to describe Lori, it would be inspiring, which is a great word, right? Wow, that's such a nice compliment. But not a word that not a word that I've ever expected or that I was trying, to have someone describe me with. And so I said to myself, having left education, I was like, and coming back from South Africa, I want to keep doing this. Like this is what I love to do. The same way I love to inspire children to be their best. No excuses. Like, don't let anybody tell you can't. And so I just decided that I was going to do some life coaching. Well, I'll fast forward. I do have a background in coaching, so it did make sense, but fast forward to why a social enterprise. And that was at some point, I got to decide as the entrepreneur who I wanted to work with, right? We get to do that. And the one thing I knew for sure was that as an educator, it was pretty easy to get people on board with your mission because we had an amazing mission, right? We're trying to educate children and make the world a better place and make them great citizens and encourage them to be all they can be. And it was a pretty easy mission. And so for me, I was like, well, those are the people that I want to work with. I want to work with the change makers. I want to work with people who, like me, are committed to making an impact on humanity. And once I decided that, it was game on. It's like, oh, where are these people, right? And then got a little bit messy, and then I discovered, things like B Corps and social enterprises and how my business can give back. And I've always worked to be somewhat of a conscious shopper as much as I can, conscious consumer, and now I am even more so. And so it's just what made sense.
Yeah. Well, it's so true how when things start to come together, how you realize that, wow, everything I've been doing has led me right here. And, and it becomes gratitude then because we all have a purpose, as we know. Some of us find it. Some of us have to come back again and again to find it. But when we find it, I don't know. For me, when I started started Dress for Success in Denver, it consumed my whole being with just love and joy and just seeing the impact that one person can do. And we don't think that. We think, oh, we're just one person. My $5 won't matter. My $5 won't matter. I only have $5 and that won't matter. It's just $5. But I always used to tell everyone, you are part of the whole. So that $5 matters. And you matter and your voice matters. And so you took this on and in a place where children were the forefront.
Absolutely.
Children are our future, and so What change would you like to see most in the world?
Oh, let's.
I could go on all day, right?
I know this by heart. So the change that I'd most like to see in the world, by the way, this is a question that I love to ask everyone, is the eradication of all violence against children. Just period. It's just nonsense. There's no good reason for it, period. And it's interesting, Kathy, as we were talking, one of the things I was thinking was, I think when we talk about finding our purpose, right? For me, I think that my purpose has changed or evolved over time, like I think it absolutely can, right? But when I look at the foundation of my life, there are a few things that haven't changed, and that's my values, right? My commitment to equity, my commitment to service, to kids. Those things are at my core. And so it's getting to the root of those things that help me figure out what my purpose is now, which is serving kids in the best way I possibly can. I can't think of a more pressing issue than working to eradicate violence against children. I mean, as an educator, especially in America, we're always looking to improve education, get better, be a better teacher, serve children better, make sure that they reach their absolute potential, which I'm all for. And at the same time, I think that if a child's immediate needs aren't being met, then they're not even thinking about whether or not they are learning, right? Or even necessarily access to learning. And so when that happens, for me, it's just like I was, putting myself back at that principal table where I'm like, I want to know what's going on at home. I want to know why they're acting out. I want to know, have they eaten? Or how do we need to approach this child who may have just experienced trauma? And so, just serving children is what I was meant to do. Only now I'm doing it in a different way.
And tell us about that way. Tell us what you are doing.
So a couple of things. So it's interesting. I'm glad you asked that question because a lot of my friends and colleagues who know me, I don't know if they're really clear about what my business is because I think they believe I started a nonprofit, which I did not.
You did not, yes.
I did not start a nonprofit.
For your Greater Good Institute, and it's not a nonprofit. And you can talk about why we don't need to be a nonprofit to give back. We talked about that. So please.
Oh, yeah. I love this conversation. Yeah. So two things. First, the way that I've chosen to serve children is by learning as much as I possibly can about the issue of child trafficking, both here locally in Denver and in the United States, and on a larger scale, as you and I talked about, which I'll be doing when I take the advocacy journey to Thailand. And my goal, I know, I'm so excited. We have stories to swap. But my goal then is to come back and figure out, after everything that I've learned, what the best way is for my business to give back to support the cause. So the one thing I think you and I both have a pretty decent understanding about giving, and that we don't want to do it carelessly. We don't want to choose a way to give because it feels good to us. We want to choose a way to give that is responsible, because oftentimes we can give and think we're doing good and actually we're causing more harm. And so I want to make sure that we're using best practices. I definitely want to be on the preventative side, the protection side of it. And the reason that I chose not to start a nonprofit is because I, one, believe I just don't know enough. Right. Two, if I wanted to start a nonprofit, I would have just started a nonprofit, but I did not, because there are enough nonprofits out there that are doing the work, right? That need more resources, whether that be time, people, training, money, whatever it may be.
And the thing about nonprofits is you can start this great organization. You become the founder and the executive director, and then you have to get a board of directors, and all of a sudden they hold your fate. Mm-hmm. And to me, it's not quite right, because usually the founder and the director, the person that starts an organization, has more passion than they know what to do with. And there's no one that will ever meet up to that because that's just the way it works. So for us to start a nonprofit and hand that over, in hindsight, I don't know that I would have done that. Because like you
Absolutely.
said, we used to give as businesses and entrepreneurs without being a nonprofit. So please continue. Please continue.
Yeah, well, and that's the great thing about social enterprise is I'm not at the place yet where I have a board of directors, but if and when, hopefully we do, that purpose, our mission will be protected, right? And I know you shared with me your experience, and while I do believe people are good-hearted, most people are good-hearted, and most people have, who are in the nonprofit world are committed to their mission. We also know that there are people that are in it for the money.
Exactly.
And the power and the prestige and let's put that on my resume, right?
Put it on your resume.
Yeah. And so one of the things that I think it's really important to get across is that I meet a lot of entrepreneurs who are heart-led, for sure, and I adore them. And the only thing different when I say that I'm heart-led is I have a social mission. Like I don't just want to help the people that I'm serving have better lives and have better businesses and have better leadership, but I want to make the biggest impact that I can make to serve humanity. And so for me, if you are a heart-led entrepreneur and you're out there and you're listening to this and you do not have a social mission attached to your business, please give me a call. Find me on Facebook because you serve in an even bigger capacity.
Right. And the more you give, the more you receive.
Yes.
If you do not have a business that is not giving back, you are absolutely not doing your part. I'm sorry. Kill me for this, saying this, but even if I'm sorry, even if I only have $5, that is enough. You are enough, and it is enough to give $5.
Well, and Kathy, the other thing too, and this is another reason that I get so excited talking about this, but this is another reason why I created my business is because people are under the misconception that that's the only way their business can give back. And there are so many different models that quite a few of them don't require you actually donating cash because many times the cause that you're trying to support or the organizations, nonprofits, communities that you're trying to support, many times they don't actually need money. They need other things. They need skills. They need job creation. They need your time, your expertise. So there are so many ways, so many different models to explore. And it is important to pick the right one for your organization so that you have the capacity to actually fulfill what you say, to fulfill your promises.
And so through the Greater Good Institute, you sit down with people and you help them decide and you listen to what they do. I mean, this is not just, coming to the Greater Good Institute and going, okay, well, this is what she does, and I better give some money.
No.
Much more than that.
Yeah,
so all of you out there that didn't know what Lori does, now you're going to know right this moment.
Yeah, so we help, we primarily focus on entrepreneurs, emerging leaders, and educators who all very much want to make an impact in the world, but they might not know what that impact is, or they have a clear vision of what that impact is, and they're not quite sure how to get there. And so another misconception that I like to address is that you don't have to have a business that gives back in order to use your influence for the greater good, right? You can be an everyday person. You can be a leader and in an organization, and you can figure out the best way that you can do that. And so we run the gamut of that. We work with individuals, we work with businesses, and we figure out, well, what is your goal? What is your impact? And what's getting in your way of making an impact? Is it a lack of knowledge? Is it a lack of understanding? Is it a lack of resources? What is it that you need? And so we start by doing some of that purpose work, right? Like, well, let's get personal and figure out what it is that you care so much about and how you really want to make an impact and what your values are and how you show up in the world or in your leadership. And then we look at are you prepared? Because this is not easy work, right? Things get in the way. There are so many people who want to make an impact, who want to make a difference, who talk about how great it would be, but don't actually move forward. And that's usually because there's a lot of preparation that goes on to really being able to commit to doing the work that it takes to get it done. So we help prepare, whether that is financially, because, for example, we definitely work with people who maybe are in a career that they don't love and they want to make a transition, but they may be mid-career and they're like, I don't know how to do that financially. So we provide that financial education, which is incredibly important, especially for women. And then we give them a path. We show them all of the different pathways that they can choose to make their impact. One might be social entrepreneurship. Another might be setting up a scholarship, right? Another might be setting up a service program at their work. There are many different paths to make their impact.
Yeah, that's really awesome, because now more than ever, people, just the way the world is, and I've just been back in the States since May, people are not happy. No. And I understand it. We can go to a whole nother thing about that. I understand why. I get all of that. And so many people are depressed and, they're not feeling good about what's going on in the world. But I can tell you this. Someone told me this a long time ago. If you're feeling bad, Kathy, just go out and do something good for somebody.
Mm-hmm. And you got it.
And I would say, bullshit. Are you kidding? I feel like crap. I'm not going to go out and do. I remember feeling that way, being so down and out, where I'm thinking, there's no way that that's going to make me feel better. Well, guess what? Fake it until you make it, because it does, and it does every single time.
For sure.
I mean, I've been here since May, like I said, and there's been down days, really down days. It's hard to come back here after living in the land of smiles.
That's so interesting. One of the things that I recognize as an educator and an entrepreneur is that, so when I talk about how I cared more about the social emotional well-being of children, it is amazing to me as an entrepreneur, the social and emotional garbage that we carry as adults. And it has just, it has strengthened my commitment and affirmed my beliefs that we need to start taking care of our children, because most of our mindset as adults and the shit that gets in our way is because of what happened when we were kids. And so that leads me to one more thing that I'm really excited to share about, which is our Good for Her startup camp. And so I cannot claim to be an expert in social enterprise just yet, not in the huge realm of it. But what I do know is I know children and I know education. And so our Good for Her startup camp is really for people who, like me, want to make an impact on women and children. And they want to do it by building a social enterprise, because perhaps they want to improve education. Perhaps they want to improve social and emotional health of children or people in general, right? So we have that also, and I've made it it's intentional that it's only for people who want to advance the lives of women and children, because that's where my heart is. That's a big passion of mine, and a belief that that's where we're going to change the world, where we can start uplifting women and kids.
Yeah, that's right. It's very true, and it's happening.
It is happening.
It's baby steps, but I'll tell you, it's happening. So if anybody out there wants to get in on it, you better connect with Lori, really. Because
even if you're a parent.
Seriously. I mean, if you're anybody, I mean, and another thing that I learned, living in Thailand, is turn off the damn TV. Okay? Turn it off, and go in here, and I'll tell you, the answers are there. Their answers are there if you're sitting quiet. Turn the TV off.
Yeah. Because and technology.
Yes. And that's hard to do, because, I'm just as bad as anybody. I have a business. I want it to get known out there. I'm on Instagram. I'm on Facebook. I'm on LinkedIn. I'm on everything, trying to, get people to look at What's Your Story Radio, because people like you are on and they are talking about really important things in the world.
Mm-hmm.
I think to myself, maybe I need to take one day off. I don't watch TV. I do not watch TV.
Yeah, I don't either.
I'll do it. Cannot.
I don't own a TV, but I will watch it on occasion. I might watch a show once or twice or tune into Netflix or something like
Netflix.
that. But
Netflix.
Yeah.
Or something.
Yeah. Which there are really good documentaries on Netflix.
Yes, there are. There's very good documentaries. And
but I hear
there's a lot of things happening, I know, in Denver with trafficking, because I remember at Dress for Success, there were some groups really, really trying to help this situation.
Mm-hmm.
And for all of you that think that this just happens elsewhere, you're full of it. It happens everywhere in the world that this happens. And this
everywhere.
Is a story, right?
Yes. Yeah, there are two organizations here in Denver that I've become affiliated with. One is Love 146, and the other is Truckers Against Trafficking. And that woman is just freaking phenomenal, the people who lead that organization. But I mean, this happens in hotels, it happens in truck stops, it happens in airports, it happens in restaurants, it happens in places that you and I don't see because we're not looking, because most of us don't want to look, right? It's not something that's on our mind when we're going about our everyday business. And so just recently, actually, here in Colorado, they shut down two truck stops that were known for trafficking. I believe it was somewhere in, I want to say Minneapolis, but I'm not sure if I have the city right, where they busted a ring of 19 massage parlors that were operating as businesses, as trafficking businesses. And yeah, it happens everywhere. And it's my responsibility. I take it as my responsibility to be aware, to be educated, because you have children who are being enslaved every single day, and they are being trafficked or exploited multiple times a day, and they don't have a voice. So I mean, how can we not be their voice? How can we not look out for them? How can we not try to help in any capacity possible? So yeah, Love 146 is an organization that goes into motels and educates them on what to look for, and how they can train their employees on what to look for so that children aren't being trafficked. One simple thing you can do when you go to a hotel is you can actually take a picture of your hotel room, and oh gosh, I'm forgetting what the website is. I'll have to get you the website, but you can actually upload your pictures onto the website. And what that does is it helps organizations like Thorn, which is an organization you may have heard of. Ashton Kutcher runs that organization. They work in partnership with FBI and the police to catch the online predators. And if you take pictures of your hotel room, one way that helps is when a child is being exploited, or being forced to make pornography or engage in sexual acts. I know this is some heavy stuff we're talking about.
Yes.
Many times that happens in hotel rooms. Many times it's filmed, pictures are taken, and then they're put on the dark internet for people to access and pay for. And Thorn is an organization that works to prevent that. And so the more pictures we can have in a database that can be matched with some of the backgrounds of these awful pictures that are being taken, the more we can shut down some of these traffickers. So,
well, it was interesting. We were just traveling from Graham, Washington to my brother's place in Vancouver, Washington, and we stopped at a rest area. And there was a lot of trucks there.
Yeah.
But in the women's bathroom, there was a square sign that said, "You do not have to be a prostitute. You do not have to do what anybody says you need to do. If you are in trouble, here is a phone number." And I thought, oh my gosh, just that little bit of help. I mean, just thinking to do that.
Yes.
Making change.
Yes, absolutely. And I know people